I love helping agents learn new things, navigate tricky situations. I love helping an agent keep a deal together, and being sort of the problem solver sometimes, or even just a sounding board.
Hello and welcome to episode 146 of the Smart Agents Podcast. As always, my name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we are joined by Holly Brink, designated managing broker with eXp Realty Iowa. Now managing more than 330 agents, Holly shares how she got her start in real estate and found herself in the position she is today. We also dive into what it means to be a managing broker and tips Holly has for agents when looking for the right brokerage to hang your license under. But before we get on to today's featured interview, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. Also, if you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or tip to share with our community, send us a message of feedback at smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to today's featured interview with Holly Brink. If you're interested in hearing more from her, I've included links to her Instagram page as well as her website, hustlewithholly.com. Really, the way I like to get everything started out is if you could just introduce yourself to us a little bit, who you are and where you're at in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Holly Brink. I'm the designated managing broker of eXp Realty in Iowa. I actually live in Northwest Iowa, which in a smaller town called Spencer. Population about 12,000 people, but I manage 339 agents across the state. So we have at least a handful of agents in each market. The largest groups would be in the Des Moines, Ankeny area, and then down in the Quad Cities like Davenport, Bettendorf, and things. Personally, I am happily divorced with 2 kids, 5 and 6. So they keep me pretty busy when I'm not, doing my broker job. Then I also run a small team. We call it a micro team. So I don't really have any agents, but I have 2 admins that help me, so I can do my own personal sales as well over here in Spencer. So those are the kind of things that keep me busy.
Right, absolutely. So I always like to ask people, what was it that first got you into real estate? Because honestly, I think I've done about 150 of these interviews, and I think only 4 people said that that's what they wanted to do straight out of high school.
Wow. Yes, I was not one of them. I owned and operated a professional pet sitting business in Arizona. And I started that while I was in college, and then it just kind of blew up. And so at one point I had like 10 people working for me and stuff. But also after graduation, I was exploring other things and other careers. And so I fell into apartment management. So I got my very first apartment free because I was also the on-site property manager. So that was, a 76 unit apartment community, I think, give or take. And the only way to move up in the apartment industry is to become a licensed real estate agent, because then you can be like the regional supervisor and stuff. So that was my intent when I took the classes. And then very quickly, I transferred into single family property management and then eventually sales. So that's how I stumbled into the field.
Awesome. Yeah. So what was it that, started getting your name out there in the residential and the single family real estate space? Was it, because you had already kind of this group of people that you knew from the, from the renters that you had in the apartments?
I would love to say yes. That was always the intent and the goal, but that's
Right.
not what ended up happening. So my career trajectory initially was in Arizona. And so I really saw my career take off when I joined a team and I became a buyer's agent. And so most of my leads were Sphere, family, friends, but most of them were sign calls and leads from the team. Then in 2016, we relocated to Spencer, Iowa. And while I have some family here locally, most of my business has been from joining like a mom's group when I first moved to town and being engaged in the community. And then really like Zillow ads and internet ads. And now that I've been here since 2016 and it's 2023, I'm getting a lot more, past client referrals and past clients calling me back and things like that. But
Yeah. So I'm really interested. You talked about joining the moms groups and joining those types of things, because I think those are always, people talk about them and say, oh, I should really do that. And then they don't really do it. I mean, I'm in a ton of like neighborhood groups here, and I don't see, ever any agents really kind of even just say hello in there. And I think that's such an untapped potential for new business. What was it that made you want to get involved in that? And then how did you start, kind of putting that messaging out there that you are an agent?
Yeah, so I mean, I when we moved to town, I was just sort of isolated. I had had this big booming real estate business in Arizona and then moved here and suddenly I was a stay-at-home mom and didn't have real estate. So when I joined the group, it was purely for those reasons, initially. And then after my son was born and I decided I wanted to get back into real estate again, I just started telling people that, I'm doing real estate again and I'm doing real estate full time. And we did this thing where when a family would have a newborn baby, we would do like a meal train. So I made sure I always brought a meal and participated and went to the meetings and things. And then, yeah, one time I was taking food to a family and they were just like, hey, are you taking on new clients right now? And I was like, I'm pretty sure I can fit you on my schedule. So I helped them buy their first home. And then, it's just been, building those connections. By no means was that my goal of joining, but it's been it's really the only way to add to your sphere is to join new groups and new clubs, especially as an adult. So I would say it's paid off tremendously. I have great friendships from it and I've made a lot of great friends from it. You know how we all have sort of like, hopefully we all have at least a handful of raving fans. Some of my raving fans are from that group. So I then get referrals from that as well. So that's been really a blessing.
Right. And I think by joining those groups with the initial intent of actually like really joining the group and participating in the group, I think it helps, like you said, gain those raving fans because they get to know you on a personal level beyond the real estate agent. They get to know who you are and really, when they go to refer you, they know it's not just somebody to help me with this transaction. It's somebody that's a real friend to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, joining a club or an organization or a group with the intent of making new friends and making new relationships is where it's at, And so I'm talking like, while I think it's great to be involved in the local chamber and meeting other business people, a lot of that has the like, what's in it for me attitude. And so, the the other organizations that are all about networking and sending referrals to other people, I have never seen much return on that. I've always seen a return when I've been genuinely interested in an organization and genuinely spent my time involved and actively engaged. So,
right. So moving on from that, how did you get, obviously as the designated managing broker, is that something that kind of started to take off once you joined EXP? And really tell me about that kind of journey.
Yeah, so I wasn't necessarily unhappy when I got my broker's license, but I started looking at what else was out there because now I felt like I had this ticket, right? I got my broker's license, so do I want to see where I'm at? Do I want to start my own thing? And that's when I stumbled across EXP Realty, and EXP wasn't in Iowa yet. When I first joined, I just transferred with my Arizona license first, and so once we launched in Iowa at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, I transferred over. The thing that was most attractive to me was the stock stuff. That agents get stock. So I thought that was really neat because in my area, there was no other brokerage like that. It was very much a hierarchy of the broker, owner, operator who was also competing with me. And then, having agents to help keep the lights on basically is how it felt. So I loved that opportunity. And about a year and a half in, about May of 2019 is when the broker who helped open the state, lay out the foundation and all the things, he was like, hey, I'm ready to kind of back off a little bit and maybe just focus on being an agent as I retire, as I ease into retirement. So I was afforded the opportunity to kind of be a placeholder until they could find someone full time. And after just a few short weeks, I was like, so about that job, can I go ahead and interview for that? So that was how I feel like I was in the right place at the right time, but I've been so blessed because when I first started, we had 69 agents, which was such a great number for me to really get to know agents and really get to have the time to focus on building out systems and processes, because here we are now approaching 340 agents, and it's a lot harder to build those personal relationships and a lot harder to build new systems. I've been trying to clean up our checklists for like the last 6 months, but other things are much more important than is the checklist alphabetized and is this it, so that needs to get done, but it's also not a priority. So it's
Right.
I know I've gone off on a tangent, but anyway, so
No,
yeah, I just kind of fell into it, but I feel like it's just been great. So
right. Yeah. So what's that been like? I mean, going from, you know, from the 69, even the 69, I mean, that's a lot of people to manage and to really, kind of support through
mhm.
their career. But then obviously blowing it up to, multiples of that. Uh, just, how fulfilling is it now to look back at your career when you first started to see, this group of people that you're helping out?
Oh my gosh, it's so rewarding and so great. Like I've made so many um great relationships with my agents. And, some agents have come and gone, and that's fine because everyone has to make business decisions. So that's the one thing I learned early on. That's the first couple of agents that left after I became the broker. It was hard not to be like, well, did I do something wrong? But after talking to them, it's like, it has nothing to do with me. Like they needed a brick and mortar. They wanted, more of an office camaraderie than we could offer being virtual. Um, so I don't take it personally now when an agent's like, hey, I'm going to go try out this other brokerage. I'm just like, hey, that's awesome. And I try to roll out the red carpet as agents are onboarding and as they're offboarding, because I want them to know that that opportunity to come back is always available as well. And I've seen, having so many agents transfer to us, I've seen so many brokers like burn that bridge and like burn it down to the ground. And I never want to be that person. So, but it's been really great to have the time to get to know some agents. And it's funny because there's agents I probably, if I'm being honest, I wouldn't recognize them if I was standing next to them at the grocery store. And then there's agents I could tell you their spouses' names and their kids' names because it's all about how much they're engaging with me. Are they coming to my meetings? Are they coming to I offer a Zoom call every day at 9 a.m. And there's about 15 agents that take advantage of that. So those are the agents that I know because they plug in and we have the conversations. And at the same time, it's low key, no pressure for the other agents, but it's afforded me the opportunity to still get to build relationships with the agents that want to have that with me. So,
Right. As you've been doing this, and you said it started in 2019. So obviously kind of world changed shortly after you took on that, but was everything virtual prior to, like, has it always been virtual?
always been virtual. Yeah.
So that was a big help.
Yeah. So it really felt like, and I'm not discounting, the
Mhm.
2020 era at all, but for us, it didn't do much. Like it didn't impact our daily operations. It didn't impact our staffing. It didn't have to pivot. All of our stuff was already virtual and online. We already had a virtual office. We already had a workplace where we could come together and brainstorm and have that camaraderie. Um, so for us, it was business as usual. And in a lot of ways, it was like, okay, finally, these other brokerages are being forced to pivot and forced to learn about what Zoom is and forced to, do e-signing and catch up to where we were. So, yeah, our company was profitable that year. Agents thrived. We did a lot of training if people had downtime. So we pivoted in that way, just offering more training and getting back to basics. Like, hey, now's a good time to knock out that CE. We don't no idea what's going on and how long this is going to take. So, but daily operations didn't change at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely one of the advantages of already being virtual. Like for us, we use Zoom every day. Prior to that, nobody ever knew what I was talking about, and then
Hmm.
all of a sudden, it was kind of became like the Kleenex word. It's just kind of you're on a Zoom call, no matter what brand you're on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, tell me about as you when you're bringing on agents and you've been working with the ones that are specifically are coming from other brokerages. What are some of those things that you're seeing that some of the newer agents that maybe are a little bit younger in their careers just haven't gotten quite the training that has really been a big focus for you?
Yeah, well, it's a multifaceted answer. First, I want to say that I'm lucky. We have a mentor program. So I'm not solely left, I don't have the entire burden fall on me to mentor these new agents, these new licensees, the transferring agents. They're partnered with someone in their MLS in their local market who can help answer their questions in regards to local nuances and things. I think for me, it's really a matter of um, in real estate, there's like the right way to do things, the wrong way to do things, and then like you get to the destination, it might not be how I would do it, but like it's okay. So it's really weeding out the what is somebody doing that's like absolutely not okay, or we need to really change that habit or that verbiage or whatever, versus just this is how I would do it. You're not doing it wrong. It's just not how I would do it. So, kind of learning that, but I, as far as like agents that have been in another brokerage and come over, I think really the things we have to focus on is paperwork. Is our paperwork different? Is the agency relationship with the client different? Do we word things differently? Oh, hey, I understand you've been doing that, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's not how we do it, and I do want you to do it a different way. Um, it is amazing how many agents do not understand that a company cannot sign documents as a company. You have to have the authorized signer sign. So that blows my mind sometimes because we're talking about agents that have been in the business for like 3, 4, 5 years, and then they get a contract signed by Underwater Basket Weaving LLC. And I'm like, well, who's the authorized signer for Underwater Basket Weaving? Because they need to sign, a human has to sign the documents. um, that's probably the most alarming and perplexing thing
Mm-hmm.
since you asked, but definitely just making sure we're on the same page with paperwork and the process and what that looks like. So
Right. So you talked about, trying to find that time to clean up the checklist. Is that, I feel like that's one of those things that having the support there of the processes and having the processes already in place when somebody were to come into a new company, I feel like that's a really big advantage and sometimes something that people don't get regardless of what company, what kind of sales company they go into. There's not the processes in place. Is that something that you really kind of like made your thing? Like we want to have these processes and systems in place to where when you do come in, the transition's pretty seamless.
yes, that's always been a goal of mine from onboarding to like your first deal. Like, what does that look like? And so on one hand, we have the agents that love it and follow it and eat it up and call me and ask me questions. And their process is it's pretty plug and play. Then you have the agents that have already been in business long enough that they're like, I'll just do it my way. And again, it's not wrong, so I don't have to correct them, but it's just like, okay, if you want to. But definitely those resources are available as far as like the plug and play, like buyer strategy session. Here's what to say, how to say it. Here's the documents to get signed. Here's how to show a property. We go through all of that in those 9 a.m. calls that some of the agents plug into. But building that transition, the onboarding was very difficult, very clunky. Now we have a nationwide sort of onboarding system. For many years, it was left up to the brokers, really fell on us to see what that looked like. So having to really realize that agent retention starts with the application and like what does that process look like is so important.
Right. So, for somebody that's out there that, is kind of kicking that around that idea of transferring brokerages, or maybe is brand new into the industry and is hearing all these different brokerage names, there's so many different things out there and, advantages and minuses to everywhere. But for a person that is looking to join a brokerage, what are the number one, what are the couple of things that you would say are the top things to look for in a brokerage that are going to help me thrive in my career?
That's a great question. I would say, the first is what kind of training opportunities are there? And do they align with your learning method? And what I mean by that is a lot of ours are virtual and they're on demand. And that's why we have that mentor piece to try to fulfill that in-person need that people crave. But, it looks different than if you were to go join a brick and mortar. But I would say that would be one piece, find out what's available to you and does that jive with your learning methods? What sort of resources are available? What what contract trainings are available, how accessible is the brokerage team? So not just the broker, but is there an assistant broker? Is there other people that I can reach out to for support? Um, and you kind of have to ask around, right? Because any broker is probably going to and be genuine when they say it. They're going to be like, "Oh, I'm super accessible," but like, are they? But I feel like that's such an important piece to the puzzle. And I've had brokers when I was an agent. I had brokers that were super responsive and brokers that were not, and it was just night and day because an agent typically only calls you when they have an urgent question. Otherwise, most of it's handled via text and email. So I would say that's an important piece. And then, like, what does that long term strategy look like? And as far as sales strategy, are they continually trying to provide you with training opportunities to make you better and referral opportunities? And, especially as a new agent, like, what sort of ways are there to plug in to get new leads? Are they just giving out leads? Do you have to pay for them? Are there third party companies? So I would be asking that question as well. Like, how would you help me get my business started? So I guess that would be a couple of the key things I would focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, for everybody that I've ever talked to with EXP, I feel like the collaboration and the training is really like a cornerstone to the company is, really that training and being on the kind of cutting edge of, the technology and, the different ways to kind of streamline things for your agents. And I think that's a really kind of fantastic, kind of thing to hang your hat on is that, we do have all this training available, but even for you to hold these calls at 9 a.m. every day, if I were an agent and I had a quick question, or if I had time, if maybe I wasn't out doing anything quite at 9 a.m., I'm going to hop on there just to hear what's happening.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's been so great for the people that plug into that. Last week, an agent was like, "So I've got this situation that's a first for me, but my buyer's buying this property and turns out it's a scam." So we had to like dig into that. And then I did a training on it yesterday in our state meeting. Like, what does that look like? Deed fraud, where someone's impersonating a poor seller who doesn't even know someone's trying to sell their property out from under them. But I don't know if I would have even thought about it or thought to train on it if that agent hadn't brought it up on the call. Um, so we're constantly trying to learn from each other. Every transaction seems to be a learning experience for all of us. The more we can share that, the better. But yeah, the training that EXP offers is just like amazing. It can be almost overwhelming as a new agent because there's just so much. You don't really know where to start. They do have I don't know, for a long time it was called the Fast Start series. I honestly think it's called something else now and it's a little different. But all those past recordings and trainings are still available in our library. But it's a matter of figuring out like what you want your niche to be and where you're at in your career as to where you should probably start. And just a simple conversation with me or anyone really on the staff side can get you kind of pointed in the right direction there. So,
Right. When looking back at the start of your real estate career, do you see that it has become just as a industry as a whole? Do you see that it has become more of a collaboration and not so much, you stay on your side of the street and I stay on mine? And I feel like that's having these conversations with brokers and agents across the country. I feel like that's really something that has kind of gone into place more these last 5-10 years.
yeah, I mean, I think you definitely see it more now, but it's definitely a personality type. So you're meeting the people that have a collaborative mindset. I see the ones that do not. So I still see, unfortunately, the ones that are cross brokerage not very nice, or even within their brokerage not as accessible because they have such a scarcity mindset. So I think, you and I and EXP were exposed to the collaboration, the plentiful mindset where there's enough for all of us. Let's all try to be better and do better and make the brand better. and I think I was explaining to someone too that most of us, like, yeah, three of us might interview for a listing, but then once an agent gets picked, like, okay, now we're all going to try to sell it and we're going to work well together if I bring the buyer. Whereas there's still agents out there that are still salty, like during the whole transaction that they didn't get the listing. And it's like, dude, you want some tequila with that salt? Like, get over it. Like, let's move on and just make this happen. So, um, but yeah, I would say that that's an important thing to look at your brokerage as well as you're looking at brokerages. Is it the kind of brokerage that you can walk into and somebody that's in the office is willing to answer your question? Or are they going to keep everything close to their chest because they don't want to tell you their trade secrets? They're not going to tell you their buyer strategy session script because they don't want you to take it. Versus an agent or someone who's like, yeah, totally, here it is. Like, make it your own. This will help you set expectations of the buyer. But it's such a key piece of the whole culture, I think, of a brokerage as well.
Right. Just kind of wrapping up, tell me a little bit, we've talked about the fulfillment that you get from being the managing broker, but what else, is there anything else that that's really, that as this role has kind of taken it on its life of its own, you've gotten so many more people that you're working with that really, kind of gets you excited every day?
Yeah, I would say those coffee chats is what we call them. Those 9 a.m. calls are just as much for me as they are for the agents. It's really nice to get the day started out in a positive mindset, collaborating with people who want to go out and get business today. Um, I love helping agents learn new things, even if we learn them together. But I love helping agents learn new things, navigate tricky situations. I love helping an agent keep a deal together, and being sort of the problem solver sometimes, or even just a sounding board. There's plenty of seasoned agents and mega icon team leaders that we have in Iowa that will call me and be like, "Hey, can I just run this by you? Here's what I'm thinking," and it's I love to be that resource for them. Um, and I love how our company is structured because I have a team, I have a compliance team that's reviewing and auditing the files. So I only get tagged in if they're like, something looks fishy here. Can you take a look at this? So it's, a few files a week versus all of the files. And then there's a whole team of people that are settling the files. So once compliance is like, yes, it's good, and the agent has uploaded their check, there's that department. So it's really allowed me to focus on answering my phone and being a good broker. And then that's ultimately what I'm paid for. That's what the agents pay their fees for, is so that I can be that broker and I can work for them in that capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, the way it's set up with EXP, it really is allowing the brokers to have a more, personal relationship with the agents in their, kind of under their care, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and it's one of my first conversations with agents is usually it's a weird juxtaposition between the states, like, you're the broker, you're in charge. Absolutely, totally get it. But unlike some other brokerages, I know that I wake up every morning to serve my client or serve my clients. My agents are my clients, right? I wake up every morning to serve my agents. If the agent's feedback was negative, Holly's non-responsive, Holly's not doing her job, like, they could find someone else that would want this gig, no problem. So what do I need to do today to keep my job and to keep my agents happy? So that's constantly, and I feel like I hear stories and things, but I feel like some other business models out there are more like, I'm the boss. I'm the person. I'm in charge. You're working for me. And it's just not, that mindset doesn't fly here. So that's not how it is at all. I work for the agents. Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I was checking out, your Instagram page. There's so much like great information out there for agents and everything. Where can people find more from you? If they're wanting to either get in touch with you, but then also hear some more of your great advice that you have.
Thank you. I would say that, hustlewithholly.com. I'm Hustle with Holly on most platforms. On Instagram, I'm Hustle with Holly Brink. Long story. But that's probably the easiest way to find me is Hustle with Holly Brink on Instagram or hustlewithholly.com. So
awesome. Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
I really want to thank Holly for joining us today. And remember, if you're interested in hearing more, check out the episode description for links to both her Instagram page and website, hustlewithholly.com. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or tips to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.